I've been a fan of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for a decent amount of time now, probably about like 4 years, and within that time my thoughts and feelings about the series have changed significantly a few times. At one point I was an annoying Redditoid kind of JoJo fan who repeats the same handful of jokes over and over again. Then after that I grew self-conscious and separated myself from not only the fandom, but the series as a whole. At that point I just thought JoJo was cringe. And now I enjoy the series like a normal person, and I can acknowledge that the show has flaws without hating it. With all of that being said though, despite the long list of problems that I have with the series, there's still a specific part of JoJo that, even 4 years later, I still think is absolute perfection. Jotaro vs. DIO is by far the best fight in JoJo, and even one of the best arcs in the entire series, for various reasons that I'll get to in a moment. Before we talk about the actual fight though, I think it's necessary to mention what happened before the fight. The reason why DIO was such an effective threat and antagonist in part 3 was the fact that he was built up to longer than any other JoJo antagonist. From the end of part 2 all the way up to the final act of part 3, the series keeps DIO's identity and overall whereabouts nearly completely secret, aside from the occasional scenes that give the audience hints as to what his stand ability might be. There are many other antagonists in fiction that are written like this, and oftentimes it's extremely effective in building a suspenseful and mysterious atmosphere, along with making the antagonist more intimidating. Not only that, but DIO is actually a big deal within the plot of JoJo. Parts 1 through 6 aren't just about the Joestar bloodline, but also DIO himself. And I know this may seem obvious, but the point I'm trying to make is that this fight has consequences, which, believe it or not, are important. And when I say consequences, I don't just mean the fate of the world or anything like that. I mean consequences like, will Jotaro be able to save Joseph in time? What about his mom? Will he be able to save Polnareff and finally beat his family's mortal enemy? Have you ever noticed how in some of the most iconic fights in all of anime, the characters usually have a strong relationship already established with one another? Crazy, I know. I'm putting a lot of emphasis on this right now because when you lack such a thing, you end up with anticlimactic final fights like Giorno vs. Diavolo, in which the characters have barely any connection to each other, and so there are little to no dramatic stakes. The ending would literally be no different if Mista got Sex Pistols' Requiem and was the one to kill Diavolo instead of Giorno. Though the suspense behind Diavolo's reveal was built up really well, after he was revealed he just became way less intimidating because he had no prior connection to the characters, so it basically just felt like Bruno and the gang were just fighting some random dude, just another gang member like everybody else they fought before Diavolo. Sephiroth, one of the strongest in Shinra and Cloud's hero, is revealed to have killed his entire village. Madara, one of the strongest shinobi thought to be dead, and then thought to be Toby, then was actually this guy, drops a meteor into the atmosphere. DIO, the main adversary of the Joestars, returns intact using Jonathan's body and has a mysterious stand ability with the goal to destroy the Joestar bloodline once and for all. Diavolo, a crime boss who kinda has a connection to Bruno and Trish, and kinda like the arrows, he can control time a little bit, and his motivations as a villain is he forgot to pull out in time. Look, I like part 5, but when comparing it to part 3, part 5's protagonists and antagonists severely lack extremely strong personal motivations to fight each other. Araki has also said this about DIO, quote, "In regards to how he contrasts with Jonathan, I wanted to tackle how you represent the ultimate villain as depicted against the symbol of justice. How exactly would he fall into the role of a quote-unquote villain? People always love to compare who's stronger or who's cooler. You've got Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Schwarzenegger versus Stallone. I wanted that to sort of be the contrast between DIO and Jonathan." We see this contrast continue in part 3. Jotaro in part 3 has many reasons to want to absolutely eviscerate DIO. He got his mother sick, he's mind controlling people, stole Jotaro's great-great-grandfather's body, and now is trying to kill him, his family, and his friends. And DIO has his reasons for wanting to kill Jotaro, those being the fact that he's a part of the Joestar bloodline, and DIO's desire to prove himself that he's the strongest stand user. Though these seem like simple and broad motivations, analyzing them can narrow discussion and lead to the creation of pretty interesting topics within the story, leading to new perspectives and the creation of an extremely rewatchable fight, not just because of the fight itself, but the context in the story leading up to it. But yeah, the fight itself is also pretty good. This fight does not drag on at all. It doesn't feel too short or too long, and watching it for the first time was an experience. I guess you could say golden experience. Am I right? I think what makes this fight so entertaining is the same thing that makes stands in general entertaining, and that's balance of power. Many anime have the issue of power cliffing. Power cliffing can turn an anime's fight scenes from smart and entertaining to, oh, this guy has an ability that can one-shot 99% of all the characters. It just makes the fights extremely boring and predictable, and they become more of an overdone spectacle, if anything. And somehow, even though Dio has the literal power to stop time, the fight is not always in his favor. Jotaro sometimes will get the upper hand on Dio, whether it be because of Dio's well-established arrogance or Jotaro's genuine intelligence. It makes for an unpredictable fight where anything can happen. You know what, I have plenty of time on my hands. Let's outline this real quick. First, Dio thinks he's won. Then he realizes Jotaro can move and stop time. What? So then Dio uses a bunch of knives to kill Jotaro. Okay, but Jotaro's still alive. And then Polnareff comes in and... Then Dio grabs onto a car and slides away, but Jotaro uses Dio's own knife to stop the car, and then Dio okay, this was stupid. I can't even defend this. This was the one stupid part of the fight. Then Jotaro finally beats Dio, but it turns out Dio wanted to get punched because now he's actually a Super Saiyan. How did this guy manage to make a fight about two comically swole men whose only powers are to punch and stop time so entertaining? The choreography, the choices the characters make, and the constant tipping of the scales and steady escalation of the intensity of the fight. I mean, to be honest, he could have easily gave Jotaro some OP transformation and make him win a fight he was severely losing or something, but he didn't, because Araki isn't a bad writer. Sometimes. Though the illustrations of the fight in the anime and manga are good in their own right, I personally love the OVA fight far above the other two. The animation is just, it's a masterpiece. The animation is so fluid, every punch has so much weight, and there's so many good creative choices in general, like how they depict Dio's time stop. And Jotaro and Dio interacting more with the environment around them. So basically, everyone agrees that this fight is a masterpiece. Up until the very ending of the fight, and I'm not sure if this is really the case anymore, but back when I first got into JoJo, people were actually kind of divided on the ending of the fight. And to be honest with you, I kind of understand where they're coming from. It's understandable why somebody would see this and think of it kind of as like a how do you say it? What? I typed this word in my script and I forgot how to pronounce it. Deus Ex Machina. Yeah, ignore my stupidity. Anyways, I digress. To be honest with you, I just don't see it as this. I mean, this...
Nothing on Earth could kill him! But, just then, he was blasted into the vacuum of space!
No, that's it. That is it.
Definitely. This, I mean, yeah, he was handed a transformation with no proper build-up. But this, no. I think Jotaro learning how to completely stop time makes sense here. I mean, it was properly built up to with the whole moving in time thing, so yeah. Basically, to summarize my final thoughts, any fight in an anime involving time manipulation is automatically A tier.